It's cute. It's real cute. Who's in charge of this show? You're not with us all. But I'll make you.
Who's first on the list?
Waiting for the go-ahead. Alan? Yeah, we're good. Oh, they started? Yeah. We've been recording this whole time.
Watch what you say.
Since 11:45. I take back everything I said in the last 5 minutes. Hi,
Not gonna allow it, Quinn.
Whoa, who's that? Ron. Ron's the only one on there right now. Let's officially get started here. So my name is Quinn Heiner, and I'll let the rest of the panel experts, is that what we want to say? Participants introduce themselves. Basically, the purpose of this brown bag, it's not going to be something that we're going to view later or anything like that. It's more just a live kind of interactive panel discussion, kind of more of a Q&A format. So even though we have some slides here, I don't intend to get through them all. We can post these later as kind of a follow-up, more of a supplemental resource that will have more of a comprehensive overview of the Pluralsight Live conference. So basically the purpose of this brown bag is more just to kind of give our thoughts and feelings and maybe have a few discussion topics that were brought up at the conference that we want to talk about and give our opinions on as well. Just to introduce myself, I've been with STG almost 6 years. I'm a .NET full stack developer, and I'll let the rest of the panel introduce themselves.
So Steve Franson, I've been with STG over 7 years. I'm a Java full stack developer. Currently the Java practice manager, and happy to be here.
Brett Richards, also .NET full stack.
How long have you been with STG?
Thank you. About 3 years, coming up on 3.
I'm the best one. My name is Shannon.
She's the most humble too.
My name is Shannon Slavosani. I'm .NET full stack for 5 years and a couple of months.
Okay, and
I'm representative of Java. There we go.
You're the odd man out. So basically, without further ado, let's go ahead and get started on everything. This was before anything happened at the conference, basically. This is the video that they showed, and I wanted to kind of share it with you guys to kind of get started on here. So create the future. That was kind of the overall theme, I guess you could say, of the conference. And these people, I think they called them 0 and 1. They were kind of doing photo ops and everything, and we're kind of there throughout the conference. I thought that was kind of fun. In terms of an actual recap, this 1.5-minute video is pretty much. Whoa, go back here. This gives an overall recap in pictures.
Technology skills are the superpower of the future.
Our mission is to democratize technology. Being a software developer is awesome. You're creating the future.
And now, I'm proud to introduce Iris. This is your Iris quotient, IQ. It's the future of your careers and your business success.
We'll talk
With
about that.
Pluralsight 1, we are committed to democratize technology.
Apps and operating systems are going to have to be smarter if we're going to really want to make people's lives better.
Give yourself room to dream.
I don't believe every kid needs to learn to code. I believe every school needs to teach computer science. The daily routine of today is change.
I had no idea it would be this big. I did not expect this from Utah. Totally exceeded my expectations in every way.
I think it's money well spent. How could I not?
We're going to be looking for the very best ideas, those ideas that will make a real, long-lasting difference.
Right. So hopefully I'll get you pumped up for the rest of the presentation. Just by the numbers, we had about 1,800 people that were there from 19 different countries. Probably some of this is kind of hard to see, but 452 speakers, 61 breakout sessions. I mean, in terms of the scale, it was a pretty massive conference, and it was Pluralsight's first conference as well that they did. They already have next year's plans. So they had 5 product announcements. We'll talk about a lot of those. And 150 Pluralsight authors were there. And for me, that was one of the coolest parts, is being able to actually see all these authors that you only hear their voice and see them write code on a video, to actually meet them in person, to network with them. That was a really cool experience. The food was good. They had lots of fun and games. It was a party alongside a conference, in my opinion. So in terms of overarching themes, I'm not going to read all this in detail. We'll make the slides available so you can review these later, but we'll talk about a couple of these. In terms of the skills gap, that was, in my opinion, kind of the overall theme of the conference, was just having this idea of the skills gap and how do we bridge that, what do we do about it. And Pluralsight's come up with a lot of initiatives in order to help with the skills gap, and also the demographic gap as well. A lot of cloud and security discussions. This one will definitely talk about this concept of a progressive web app, or PWA is kind of the new buzzword right now when it comes to the web in 2018. They keep talking about this, so we'll talk a little bit about that. The blurring of the lines between where does a website end and an app begin, and what are some of the tools and methodologies that are associated with that. And then really, Pluralsight is no longer just a company with a bunch of videos on how to do something. They really are a platform that's attempting to solve the skills gap. And we're going to talk about what some of their initiatives are and our overall opinions on it. They had some interactive things at the conference that would basically assess our skills and things like that. And I'm going to get these guys' opinion on how effective they thought those were. So I'm going to go ahead and turn the time over, just kind of give everyone a turn to give their overall thoughts and any themes that I missed from the conference. Just kind of an opening remarks, I guess you could say.
Well, yeah, my assessment of it was that, obviously is a technology, a company that revolves around technology education. And so a lot of their, what they were about was pushing that notion of how do we address that skills gap that a lot of companies have. They're trying to position themselves as, as a platform to train people, essentially, and specifically in technology-related areas. So they have some good ideas, some good initiatives that surprised me. Some of the breakout sessions were good, but those went more into specific technologies rather than the overall education of technology. It was more like a traditional kind of brown bag, or even a presentation on talking about technologies and how it can help us in, or different parts of technology. So.
right?
So yeah, definitely a focus on that platform and the skills gap. One of the points that they made that I hadn't thought as much about is not just that there is a gap, because there aren't enough people being trained, but that the gap is moving, that all the new technologies keep coming up. There's always a new framework, a new way to do things in REST web apps, and that everybody needs to constantly be developing, training, and they obviously are positioning themselves to be a solution to that.
To me, that today's event was not just a conference. To me, it was bold, daring, and I really enjoyed it. And the two sessions every day from 9 to 12. At first, I thought, oh my gosh, it's going to be very boring, but no, it was very. They inspired me in many cases. They talked about the mobile application to human versus robots, Microsoft Cloud, security, over and over. So I know that Queen showed some part of it. I don't want to miss it again. The food, the drink,
It was really
dessert, everywhere.
It was
I
fancy.
don't know, it was more than 10, 20 different kinds of tea flavor. I tasted every one of them. I really enjoyed that.
Nice.
But definitely some of those, speaker or keynote, they inspired me that I would like to go for it.
Brian 2.0, I guess. Two Brians.
I didn't like networking with authors. I was actually pretty surprised by this conference. Not for any of the reasons that you guys were. One, being an author, I thought I'd have a lot more insight as to what they were going to present on and what they rolled out. That was as much news.
So they kept a lid on all their product announcements, everything else.
The first time I heard of Iris was at that conference. I'm sure that's how they're using our courses. Hey, check that out. It's interesting to see. I had wondered if Pluralsight was, as you're saying, becoming another company that just had a bunch of videos out there on a server, and what would you do? What separates them from Udemy? Because I get that one all the time. Well, there's a course for $10 on Udemy. I'll just go take that, and it's garbage. It's $10, but you get what you pay for. It's garbage. But it was like, okay, whatever. Steve and I sat down and rushed and almost somewhat jokingly went through and did our Iris assessments, and I came back going, "Oh."
Was that a humbling experience?
It was.
For me, it was too.
It was very humbling in a good way, though. Yeah. And I think a lot of times people are a little hesitant to go take an assessment on themselves because they're afraid of what the answer would be. First of all, we can't know it all in any of these technologies, and Ryan, you kind of touched on that a little bit. There's always something new out there for me to know. The cool thing about the way that Iris works, specifically, I don't want to just talk about Iris, but the way that Iris worked was it identified, hey, you have this gap here, here, and here. Here is your own customized learning plan for you. So in some ways, and I'm not saying, don't hear this to be saying it's going to replace our CDPs at all. Not in the slightest. In fact, I look at it as a compliment to it.
I think you know, but Brian, you're out.
No, so I was quite impressed with how well it said, okay, here's the holes that you have. You say you're this type of developer, that's fine. Go be that type of developer. Now let's go see where you've got holes in it. And that was fascinating. The other thing I was really impressed with is, and it was, I wasn't expecting from the conference, was one, the philanthropic side of the conference.
And we'll definitely talk about that.
Yeah, that was amazing to me. But something that it's been looming in the back of my head, but it's kind of like when people invest in their 401k and don't really think about what retirement's going to be. There's a good chance that my kids and many of your kids' college education is going to be more than you can afford to pay. If you have a young kid in 10, 15 years, they're in college, it could be a $300,000 bill for them to finish a bachelor's degree. Not a doctorate or a master's level upper, education, a bachelor's degree, depending on where they want to go. You're looking 4 years, all the stuff that goes with it. And they talked about how that paradigm has to shift. It can't continue down the path that we're going on. It's just, the train's going to come off the tracks.
Yeah.
And that was a pretty big eye opener to me. I mean, I've been involved in this space for 20 plus years, but to look out that it's as recent as 8 to 10 years down the road that people can't afford a college education at all. Okay.
Yeah, there's some presentations I want to get to. Hopefully, we'll have time for that links the opportunity, the skills gap to opportunity gap, and kind of relates the idea of economic to technology. And if you're an economically prosperous nation, you also have the access to the latest and greatest technology. Yep. So we'll talk about that for sure.
One number they threw out there was, and I didn't realize this, I should have. Student loan debt in the United States is $1.4 trillion.
I think it's exceeded credit card debt.
It has.
It has.
$1.4 trillion
Absolutely.
for student loan debt. That's staggering to me. So there were some other cool takeaways. I actually thought it was pretty genuine too. A lot of the keynotes disagreed with one another. Yeah. So it wasn't like they had their canned, we want to give you this theme, let's just get people who agree with the way that we are. Joel was ripping on Facebook. I mean, they were
like a couple of later, the guy, one of the chief technology guys from Facebook comes in.
Yeah.
Joel said, understand how Facebook's propaganda. And here's the CTO from Facebook.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
There was some pretty. It felt genuine to me.
Yeah.
I've been to a lot of conferences where it's here's the machine that they want you to go through, and these are all key players in our industry. It's
great that you mentioned the disagreements. There was a panel session where the question asked was the whole idea, this whole debate of should I go to a 4-year college and get a standard CS degree and all this to be marketable and to be a good program, versus learning from something like Pluralsight, more tailored, more individual, more up to date. And that whole debate, the answers of the panelists were completely different.
Yeah. And
some agreed, some disagreed on one way versus the other. So maybe we'll get to that as well. Sure. It's definitely a discussion question.
Because I'll debate on that.
My overall thoughts, I was a little disappointed when I first saw all of the sessions, all of the breakout sessions. I didn't think that any of them went very technical in nature. I didn't see a single line of active code in the entire conference. And when I first went there, I was a little upset about that. But I'll tell you what, after listening to all of the different sessions and the keynotes and everything else, I'm still thinking it was very much worth it and glad I went for a lot of other reasons we'll talk about later.
Should also say the same thing. Yeah, when I saw a keynote from 9 to 12 every day, I'm going,
yeah, exactly.
All right.
It's gonna be just like this long, boring meeting, but the time, the keynote time, like 9 to 12, that went by so fast. Yeah. I was surprised when it's lunchtime already. It was amazing. So in terms of production quality, I mean, you saw the videos. Those were custom videos that they did, just incredible. The food. We'll talk about Steve Young and Michelle Obama. We had really high-profile people give some keynotes, and so we'll hopefully have time to get into those. And of course, Pluralsight Live, it was sponsored by Pluralsight. It was definitely a front for them trying to market their products and talking with different customers of theirs and how their business has been transformed by Pluralsight and some of the initiatives that they've taken. And we'll hopefully can apply some of that to SDG and what we're doing with our Pluralsight stuff. So let's get to the keynotes. First, Aaron, is it Skynard? Skynard. He's the CEO of Pluralsight. Gave a great opener keynote on some of the product initiatives at a more high level, and then after him, we'll talk about some of the more specifics. And we kind of already touched on this, but I wanted to, his main topic was about the technology skills gap. What do we do about it? Is it really an issue? Do we need to worry about it? How do organizations develop talent? And then how do we quantify it? How do we say you're skilled in this area? And then how do we scale it? And Pluralsight's done some amazing things in some emerging markets. He gave the example of the guy in Africa that did his Pluralsight. Do you remember that? He did this Pluralsight. He did the Iris quotient or whatever and found out that he's just as skilled as someone in Silicon Valley in terms of technical skills and certain technology. And so things like that, trying to democratize technology. I didn't realize the numbers. Pluralsight has 3.8 million users, 13,000 business accounts, and over 6,000 courses, which is almost necessitates the need to be smarter about just having 6,000 videos, go take your pick. How do we map skills to roles. How do we know what Pluralsight course someone should take to be in this particular role for this client, what we're looking for? We're going to talk about a lot of that. And hopefully a lot of like the account managers and recruiters and things like that can benefit from some of this discussion because I think Pluralsight has done some great things. And then of course, only technology unlocks the ability to learn technology. I think that's totally true. So in terms of your overall thoughts of his presentation on the skills gap, and your overall opinions on the technology skills gap, and then we'll get more specific on the Pluralsight products and initiatives in the next slide. But I wanted to get your overall thoughts on this keynote and specifically the technology skills gap.
But it actually interested me. It piqued my interest right off because I was kind of going there. I'm not a usual conference goer, and the ones I go to are usually kind of, so. But it particularly as one of the practice managers, where he was touching on the skills gap, and some of our initiatives at STG about the CDPs and training people and helping them move along in their career. And one of my greatest challenges is identifying that skills gap. I get asked all the time, well, who would be a good fit for this position, and who can do this, and those kind of things. Is that sometimes I feel I don't have enough information to say that this person is a great fit for this because they have really demonstrated their proficiency in any of the areas, and that's and that's a tough thing to do. That Pluralsight is trying to address is how do you really demonstrate your knowledge and abilities in these areas that I think is just as an industry, we lack because we get hired on, so if you're not a consultant with STG, other places they hire you on, and I've been involved in hiring and stuff throughout my career. It's sometimes it really is a crapshoot of whether or not they really know what they say they know, whether or not it's their resume padding and those kind of stuff. And as a practice manager, trying to reconcile that has been one of the bigger challenges for me. Is just to be able to say, yes, this is what it is, and that's what he started off addressing. And some of their initiatives was to really to give numbers to something a little more objective. That's not just, hey, I talked to them for 10 minutes and they're good to go. It's actually they demonstrated it.
Yes. So very good. We're past. We can pass.
To me, I don't know. Maybe it's me, and even that IRIS or IQ. I talked to some of the people over there beside others, and I asked them, what, I'm watching them, for example, C#, and this one is for 72 hours or something, and you want to ask me a question, do they understand it or not? I may memorize some of them. I can prove you I can answer all the questions, but I have to have hands-on. When you have a hands-on, based what Hardy said, that education is not about the learning. It's about how to inspire you. So you have to have a passion. When you're learning something, you want to know more. Not just memorizing something, I check. Okay, got it. That's it. This is the technology. This is not data entry. I talked to someone. What do you do? How do you make this assessment stuff to make sure that after that I pass these 2 hours, I test myself and then I practice. Even if I do practicing at my home, I do the simple stuff, but then you go to the real world. The client asks me, I want this, I want that, I want this. That's your challenge. This is my opinion about how to learn the stuff. And Pluralsight, to me, again, is the place that make me excited to go for it, to dig for it, if I wanted to know more information.
The only thing I really had there, my initial thought of IRIS was, oh great, a bunch of certification questions they're going to throw at me. Some of them were that way. And They asked for feedback on them. They had a feedback mechanism right inside of Iris saying, hey, if you didn't like this question, send it back to us. I did, and I thought, yeah, we'll see where that goes. Now, one interesting thing is I do have some insight that nobody else gets to see there. I had people counter some of the assessment questions I had on one of my courses that I had to go back through and clarify what the question was. So I've seen the feedback mechanism going on and them improving it. So I'm pretty optimistic that it's going to be, because my first stab of it was like, yeah, that's just total stupid. If you write code like that, I'll slap you. You know, it's a total stupid certification question.
Yeah.
And I put that in my response to him. Why would you ever write code like this? That was the question I sent back to him.
Right.
And then I had one of the editors say, hey, you've got a couple questions you need to go clean up in your course. I was like, oh man. I went in there and I had to, it was more how I presented it grammatically, but I had to clean up some stuff inside of one of the assessments. So they are taking feedback. They are adapting it rapidly. Well, I wouldn't say real time, but near real time.
Yeah.
Adapting questions in their assessments. So.
That actually is a perfect segue into the next keynote. And sorry, if anyone has questions or comments, please feel free to interrupt us as we're going through here. Nate Walkinshaw, there's so many C whatever O's. I didn't even know that there were this many. There's Chief Experience Officer, there's a Chief People Officer, a Chief. Yeah, I think they're just making stuff up now. But this is a Chief Experience Officer. I have heard of that one at Pluralsight. And he comes out, he's in shorts, a t-shirt, and hoodie. Yeah, sorry, hoodie, and just tennis shoes. And he basically went into more detail on the CEO's, Sconner's thoughts on specifically what Pluralsight is doing to address the skills gap. And he talked about some of the things, and I want to get your guys' opinions on these since we had some personal experience. He talked about this spray and pray thing that we always do when we're trying to say what will work for this developer in order to develop their skills. We say, okay, well, we have a certification program you could do, we have Classroom, we have LinkedIn endorsements, which don't do you much good, right? Your friend who's never seen you on your day-to-day work is endorsing you for whatever skills, just doesn't have a whole lot of clout. So he basically said all those things are ineffective in a lot of ways. It's not individual enough, it's not, and it doesn't really measure. There's not an objective way to measure those skills. So he talked about, first off, they're working on a unified UX for Pluralsight, meeting users where you are. And it was kind of a little over the top sometimes. He gave the analogy of, you're in your car, you're listening to a course, then you step off and you're in your desktop mode at the office and you continue right where you left off. All these different platforms that you can continue and have this continuous integration, this continuous experience with how you're consuming the Pluralsight courses. So he talked about that, and then specifically, and this is where I wanted to get your guys' thoughts on, he talked about Iris. We mentioned it briefly about it. It's basically an AI tool that he claims as you give more data to it, as people are taking more of the assessments, it gets smarter. It's comparing you against all the other developers that are taking the tests. It's able to better tailor the questions to you. As you go through, what I've noticed, what was interesting about it is I took one on a subject that I didn't really know a whole lot about, and it started out with kind of some medium, not very super difficult questions, but I noticed as I were getting those questions wrong, it instantly went down to more elementary, more fundamental questions for it. So it's very adaptive. What's funny is that they kept saying, this is not a test, this is not a test. That was the motto. But ironically, the test, there is a multiple choice test that you're taking, right? So I thought that was kind of funny. But at the same time, it's not your traditional same 20 questions for every developer. It's very tailored and unique. And like I said, it's a data mining tool as well in order to better assess how you're stacking against everyone else. And it kind of gives you these three different ranges, 100, 200, 300, whether you're proficient, novice, expert, proficient. And they also, in terms of the business side of things, like for account managers, for whatever, they had a lot of analytics, kind of dashboard functionality of this idea of channels, advanced channel analytics of, in an organization, I want this role. I don't know who best to fit this role, but I'm going to put this role out here, and I have this specific course path in order to get to that role. So they're mapping courses to roles, and you can share those channels with anybody. And then talking about the skills analytics, verifying and certifying roles, and then the Pluralsight IQ stuff as well. So all of these different product initiatives, I wanted to get your guys' experience with taking the tests. Do you really think, are you hopeful that this will solve some of these technology skills gap questions? Will this give organizations a better idea of where their techs are at in terms of skills, and just overall what you thought of it?
Yeah, my take on it was a little similar to Brian. We were sitting right next to each other, and as he was a little bit, as we were going through it, I was thinking, wow, these are like the certification questions.
Yeah.
Just a lot of the same thoughts as him. It's just, this is kind of stupid. Who would, if you write code like this, you need to learn how to write better code. You know, and then I took, you know, a mental step back and said, okay, well, they're trying to test you on this, and I think as it goes on, it'll get better, because they'll get the feedback that these are stupid questions, and but they've got the platform there. I think was the big deal, to be able to enhance that, to get better at doing what they're trying to do, which is, like I said, get that platform for assessing and to quantifying people's skills. To his, you know, this is not a test. I actually encountered that is, you know, talking with people about their CDPs within SDGs. Well, I don't want to, you know, I don't want people to know what I'm doing, you know, because if I'm doing something that's elementary, that they're going to think whatever, you know, or I don't want to re-interview for my job and whatever. And that's, I got the gist of what he was saying, or what they were trying to present, is that it's not some, yes, you've got to assess. And so that it is a test, but it's not about your score and whether you pass and fail. It's about giving you a better idea of where your skills lie, so that you can say, oh, I'm a little weak there, I want to build something there. And so you know what it is that you need to train on and how to develop those skills, which I think it is really the same point of our CDPs, is to identify things and places where people can advance their skill set, and to move their career. That's the career development plan, and part of that is kind of assessing, you know. And so this has, I think, good potential for helping us to assess where they lie, and that some of their tools that they have was kind of cool. Like you said, they'd be able to do roles, and so we say, well, this is a front end, or this is a full stack Java developer. Okay, well, what does that mean? Okay, well, that you need to front end, JavaScript, HTML, CSS, Java, Spring, all these things. We got this, you know, all these technologies that we classify as a full stack developer, but they have where you can go through and take these assessments. And the cool thing is after you take those assessments, that you know, that you have that customized path, and they'll say, okay, you can take these courses to help with your JavaScript, and take these ones, you know, for Java and those kind of things. And so it was, I think that's facilitating the technology to help us with that. So it's not as much as, okay, well, sure, I've taken a test and I failed there, what do I do next, you know?
Yeah.
That they were giving something along that line.
And seeing more objectively before and after, because you can watch a Pluralsight course at 2x speed and get maybe 10% out of it, but they're saying, you get this score, you take these courses, and then you can retake the assessment. It's completely different questions, completely, like I said, it's a very intelligent test. And so you can actually see measurable progress and have more of a benchmark of where you're at after the Pluralsight training, rather than just saying, hey, I watched the video.
Yeah, right? That was the thing that I liked as well, is because you could do snapshots at a time, right? You do it before you do all this training, and then 6 months later you could take it again, and you can see whether you've advanced in that.
Yeah.
And something that, you know, we're looking for, as well as from, you know, account managers, is like, what have you done in the last 6 months?
Yeah.
You know, and, well, I did my CDP goals, but did you learn anything, right? And that's so that you know, potential tool again.
You have a Pluralsight account active using it. Okay, just curious. All this stuff is included in your regular individual accounts. You don't need, like the analytics and stuff, you'll need the corporate, which we don't have, we don't do anymore. But basically, you can go in and do this stuff right now that we're talking about. So just a heads up on that.
You could probably go and do a trial to go in and take this certain assessments of things. See where you are.
Did anyone else want to comment? Oh yeah, question.
I just had a quick question. Every company out there thinks that their newest product is going to be the big game changer. That's just what companies are supposed to think. Is this a big enough game changer that this is something that's going to impact the market that we need to be jumping on?
Possibly. They were, of course, they were talking it up. You know, but they
was very good.
Yes.
Every time they talked about it, just for Steve, they played loud techno music, which tells me it's
Yeah.
gonna be successful right there.
It was really loud.
Do I think it's gonna be is this it? Is this gonna change the industry? No, it'll revamp into something different. 2 years down the road, 3 years, 5, I don't know. But they are solving a problem in this teaching space that nobody else, I feel like, is even looking at. And I think that's why they kept it so under wraps, that they know they have authors who work with Linda, who work with Udemy, Udacity, whoever, and that's why I think they were so tight-lipped about it, is because nobody else is even approaching this. Everybody else is just shoving content out as fast as they can on these frameworks that I gotta learn from. Well,
for JavaScript.
Yeah, they do. It's 3 days for JavaScript. But no, I think they are approaching a problem that nobody else is really trying to solve right now, and that is impactful. Whether it'll be the same thing 3 years from now that it is today, I can't say that. They can't say that, but it is their adaptive learning. You get a customized learning path for you for everybody, and it's automated. It's done. That's huge. Because we talked about saying, okay, let's go through and put together an STG certification. If you watch these 7 courses, then you're a Java full stack developer, a .NET full stack developer. If you've done these 10 things, well, that's great. You can still suck here and suck here, but we say you're great. It's not objective. And this tests you individually, and that's pretty cool.
I think they will get some traction with the corporate side of it as well, because they're selling it as as your training partner as far as the corporate world goes, to where they can say, here's all your training needs in your corporation. You've got quantifiable analytics of where the people in your organization are, and here are the skills gaps that they have. That then you can, it gives more information to hiring managers and those kind of things of, hey, can we train them? And that's their point, is to help train them, but also, hey, we need to bring some people in. It helps identify where their gaps are. And so even though Pluralsight's pushing it to what content can we offer you to help with your corporate needs, but it can be used to help as far as that. And I think that's a little more of the potential, is to really do that at a corporate level. And if they are able to work their way into education as well, as the, which is a tough space to get into, that, it could do the same thing for the classes, that use the assessment engine and those kind of things to see where students are, to help instructors and, colleges as that way to help develop their curriculum as well. So
everybody's taking a college course that was horrible.
Yeah.
Exactly. Should fix that.
Because it addresses where the skills gap, but also the education gap. Because you go to a 4-year college, get your degree, 10 years down the road, you're doing nothing that you learned it, or you've learned 10 times more in real life than you did at the school, and so there's this huge education gap that's there. And some of their partnerships, I think one of them was with I don't know if we were going to talk about this, code.org, which is really looking to push coding down into schools and to make it more available at high school and even
junior high, elementary
to
Yes.
learn how to code.
Actually, that one is taken on code.org.
Yeah, we can
And
go
that one is taken on Hadi Parsovi,
Yeah.
and he's from Iran. Do you know where I am from?
Let me guess.
Yeah. He started,
Sandy, Utah.
He taught himself coding when he was in high school, something like that. He came to United States, and he got a graduate from the computer science in Harvard University. And he said in that, in the non-profit code.org, 20% of the U.S. student has an account. 20% of the whole United States student, they have an account. And 600,000 teachers are using this code.org. 1 million 5th grade are coding, and they enjoy this class more than any other classes. As he said, that computer science also should be taught from the primary school, similar to other, classes like biology, math. They have to learn at least the basic stuff about the computer science. Why? Because these kids are in the digital world. And 41% of those people, kids are girls, doesn't care about those, and 46% are poor people, because this site is free, everyone can go. And actually, I went through that. It's very fun. For the primary school, they're talking about frozen, how to walk. It looked like a pseudocode. It said, Elsa, what's the name that frozen? Want to walk 100 meters and then left to the right 90 degrees. Right the code. You have to and drag it and drop it that pseudocode, and they can look at the inside the code. It's very fun, interesting. I really enjoy that too.
Yeah, we did have some slides on code.org, but in the interest of time, I think we'll have time for maybe one more discussion topic. I wanted to get to one of the breakout, some of these. I highly recommend going through these slides. There's a lot of information from a lot of other keynotes that we didn't have time to go over, but just.
Is that if I talk about the, and Cynthia Maxwell a little bit?
Yeah, sure.
The keynotes are all online if you want to go watch.
Yeah. Oh, are they?
There's a couple that aren't actually. Steve Jobs isn't.
Steve Jobs.
Steve Jobs isn't. You've seen a documentary on it.
He's Skyping from the grave.
Michelle Obama's isn't, and Steve Jobs is not available.
Yeah, that presentation must have been interesting.
So why don't you comment on Cynthia Maxwell's, and then we'll talk about, I want to talk about progressive web apps. I think that was a big topic of discussion that I wanted to get your guys' thoughts on.
I have to stand up and answer it because I don't know, I have too much energy. I can't, sit and talk about that. But, the Cynthia Maxwell is talking about it was about the future mobile application. Did you know that 66% of the world population are unique mobile users? 66% is a lot. So what you talk about, of course I cannot say everything because I don't remember, where we are now and where we could be, later. So for example, she said that you're running to catch a train and you're late and you grab your iPhone to enter the passcode to see to get, but when you're running, you cannot type, perfectly. After 3 times or 4 times, you reach to the OS. And now you wanted to upload the application. The font is too small, you cannot read it. You have to stop. You bring the endpoint and the start point and to bring is that the right train or not? You notice the train left. These gaps will irritate, but notify you by steering the experience, not being driven, presenting the most important interfaces first and then make the input simple. So right now we are using the keyboard. Have you ever heard about the augmented reality, AR? Something that, because interfaces need respect because and adapted to the environment. So because every user have a different pattern. So this mobile application must predict what I wanted to do, intent, what is the user intent. So the other things that she was talking about was about the security. The current security is the passcode, Touch ID, and Face ID. Do you have any Face ID? Is it, do you have it? I'm waiting after I've done my plastic surgery, definitely I buy one. So because we give it a lot of our personal information, such as, medical information, credit information, to this algorithm, we have to secure this algorithm to security. So the other things about the future security. The future security is gonna ask more identity, such as driving license, passport, and even your voting record. How to protect? Did you know that passport is optional? It's scary if people don't put that passport in the mobile application. So because majority of the user are using the mobile devices, you can make the people's daily life better.
Yeah, so no, I appreciate that. I think basically a lot of her discussion was about just having the OS be smarter,
Yes.
be more self-aware.
Yes.
Like you said, you gave the idea of taking the picture and it can figure out what ingredients
So
you need
it's asking you,
things
what
like
do you
that.
think, what you have
So
to
it's more a
appreciate.
context search rather than just typing in some keywords and things like that. So yeah, that was very good. So last topic, I did want to talk about, obviously the web in 2018, that was a big subject, and one of the breakout sessions talked a lot about that as well. But the big buzzword in terms of the web and technology in general, I think, of this conference was the concept of PWAs, or progressive web apps. We have these disparate worlds. Someone wants a mobile app, so they want iOS or Android, or they want a desktop app, or they want a website. And so basically what PWAs are trying to accomplish is that you really can kind of bring all of those into a single platform, I guess you could say, and more platform agnostic, to be honest. You have your shortcut icon on your phone, and you click it. It's technically opening up a website or a web app, but it looks and feels so much like a native app that you can't really tell the difference. And they gave the example of Twitter here. You can see one of them is the native Android app, and the other one is implemented as a PWA. With full screen technology, a lot of phones are going in this direction of a full screen browser experience, to where you don't have your tabs and everything else like when you think of a web application, to where now you really can't tell the difference. And so in terms of what you need to do in order for your web application to be a progressive web app, I mean, that's beyond the scope of this discussion, but basically one of the big ones was offline, having an offline strategy, because apps obviously are often not connected to any network resources. And then making it more responsive, more just more slick UI and UX experience, so that you actually are not, that it feels like you're using a native app. So in terms of the web and the direction of it and PWAs, you kind of think this is just a fad? Do you think this is kind of where we're headed? In terms of software in general, is it all going to be a website now? What do you guys think?
So I don't know if it was this talk or somewhere else at the conference, but someone pointed out the iPhone is 10 years old now. That's a legacy platform.
Yeah.
Mobile is not new. Web isn't new, but that's kind of where everything is. You can get web technology, you can put it on a phone, it can be an app, it can be a website, it can be on the desktop. There's technology now that you can build those web tools into a desktop app that's installable. It's everywhere, it's not going away. The internet is the only platform that lets everything talk to anything else.
Yeah.
And if your app isn't on it, then you're going to end up in a drawer.
Yeah.
Well, it's just as developers, it just shows to me that it's just going to get more complex as we go on. It's because your application is no longer just a web app or just a mobile app. It's everything, and you get into the enhanced security features and AR that you're going to have to put into these, and how do you do that for a web app? That these problems are just going to kind of explode into other areas of where we as developers have to go into. We're going to have to explore those and develop our skills in order to deliver those to the world, basically. And so, and I think that's it really played in with their whole education thing, is we have to be continuing in our education constantly. We can't just think, oh, we know Java or we know .NET, and so just because I've been working at a client for 6 months, that I'm going to be using those technologies for the rest of my career, because you're not. It could be in the next 10 or 15 or 20 years that our tool set is going to be completely different. True. And so
And it's really, I think you're to the point of platform versus language. That's great that you know C#, but what can you build with that? What's the end result of that? And I think that's the big point with the PWA as well. Any other quick comments? Okay, well, we're pretty much out of time. Again, we had a lot more keynotes, a lot more slides and things. We'll make these available for you if you wanted to get more in depth. like the Arnie Duncan, the U.S. Secretary of Education, Michelle Obama's, some of the things that she said, just a lot of really good information. Steve Young obviously gave, I really enjoyed it, Steve Young's.
Yes.
So yeah,
Nice.
we have some links here for you to go, and you can, apparently you can watch all of these keynotes. So that's really exciting.
If you find something, let me know, because I'm looking for.
Yeah.
Steve Jobs.
Yeah. Any other final questions or comments before we let you guys go?
So next year there's going to be also in the Salt Lake City that Pluralsight August, you can join.
All right.
I was gonna say another
Yep.
thing, he asked, is this platform any good? I've always been really skeptical of training stuff like this. I'm mostly self-taught. Everybody's got their little progressive test that says, score this, and they use it for screening, and most of them are worthless.
Mm-hmm.
This is probably the first one I've ever found that I'm like, actually feel like can teach me as a tool.
Yeah.
And gone, oh yeah, okay, I kind of know this, but these are areas I should be working on, and here's a career path where I need to pick up that and that if I want to be able to build these products and people think.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think
I was impressed with it, maybe because I was swimming in the fluid.
for me, it kind of begs the discussion of whether, as SDG as a company, whether we need to start doing some custom channels, maybe even getting some corporate dashboard functionality, getting with the corporate licensing and things like that, and start taking advantage and helping Pluralsight along with their stuff as well. Something to think about as well. So anyway, thanks everyone.
An hour.
I saw that you got your
Thank you for
You get to pick up the
Yeah, there's no longer a concept of limited license. But as soon as, and this is interesting.
It's exactly what you thought.
What we do, you want to have a rotating basis, you want to say, the 10 people that are using are the only licenses that we pay for, right? And now, all of this new stuff that we're doing, where you get all of these skills analytics and you have this one is working, right?
Well,
There's actually a site, I see there's specific content. So yeah, so yeah, that's really no, I totally agree. Thanks, appreciate it. Thank you. Like the panel around back, I think that's maybe we could explore that a little more with like technology. Yeah, it's a little more interesting than just static. We'll get out of there showing code.
well, especially for
Yeah, that's very true. You're right. They said it was merging of all of this, basically. I think that they don't have trends, but I think developer not kind of last on the list of who to do this. There's a lot of great marketing.
Thanks, Jen. You're awesome.
Thank you.
You could argue maybe it was more of a conference. All right.
Good job, you guys. Thank you.
Thank you again for facilitating everything.
I did the easy part.
Guess really what I got.